Hi, hello, and welcome back to Lancer, our favorite mech tabletop RPG, and today we're talking about the speed freak themselves, the Nelson. Our fourth IPS-N license, the beginning of this column. Now, when covering the licenses, we're namely going to be talking about the mech chassis first, the thing you get at LL2, which is levels within Lancer, license levels. And there's 3 different levels to a license, giving either mods, systems, equipment, weapons, etc. We're going through all the core chassis at the moment, going through each of the manufacturers they can see on this list, and then alphabetically down each of those manufacturers. But to the Nelson, the speed freak, the fastest chassis in the game. You might be questioning why, especially when we look at some of its stats later, because we already mentioned 3 with the fastest base speed. But when it comes to the Nelson, it's not just its base speed. It already has a pretty decent base speed, but it's the fact of its traits, its core power, all of the additional systems you can put onto it. This thing is designed to charge. It looks like a knight, is used by the Albatross, the Space Knights. Mentioned in this video, by the way. This thing is meant to get stuck into combat as fast as possible. If the Blackbeard was using a grapple hook to try and throw itself into combat and get itself in 0G towards someone, the Nelson is on the ground sprinting at them. And it's not even just the brawl, it's the fact it does fit that archetype of the Albatross, of not just the Albatross, but the Lancer. That knight, that cavalry unit, that specialized figure with a lance, in this case a war pike, charging directly into the enemy to break their formation and their will. Because while the Blackbeard is terrifying for the blender it's going to be when it gets to you, the Nelson is a guarantee that it's getting to you. If you spot a hostile Nelson not already in melee with you, it's already too late. You've seen it, it's seen you. But now onto the frame and chassis itself. So here are its base stats compared to the Everest, the base license you get as kind of a starting frame. So a relatively decent increased speed, still not the 6 base that you saw with the big 3. A high evasion to show that it's dodging out of the way of everything, though low health to resemble less bulk because it's trying to move in as fast as possible. And then what really sucks is the sensors, but you're not really looking to hack that much with the Nelson. Again, you're trying to get into melee with the Nelson. This thing is meant to run in, stab as hard as possible, and either get out or keep going. But some relatively straightforward stats. When compared to the Everest and what its role is, it makes sense. But like I mentioned earlier, the fun parts of the Nelson, the ridiculous speed parts of it, those are all within the traits, core power, and license. But before heading on to those traits, it's size and mounts. So first it's size 1. Pretty standard. Not a super small frame darting around, it's a regular size chassis. You then also have a flex mount and a main aux mount. So again, not the total gunboat with 3 different things or any kind of super heavy, but still decent mounts to be flexible within combat, or at least have flexible options. I mean, you only really need one big one with the main anyway with the charge. And speaking of that charge, the first trait, momentum. Once per round after you boost, the next melee attack with the Nelson deals an additional 1d6 bonus damage. On hit, as you're running as fast as possible towards the enemy to just stab this massive war pike or whatever other melee weapon you have on you into them. It is the charge ability, it's the charge trait. It's probably one of the easier bonus damage dice to get, just a free d6 if you boost towards your enemy, but you do kind of need the run up. The next trait is Skirmisher, so whenever the Nelson attacks, it can move 1 free space. And it doesn't need to be melee attack for this one, it's any attack. This movement ignores engagement and any kind of reaction, so you can just run into combat and immediately bounce back out, especially with a melee weapon with range. You don't even need to get that close in the first place. Or you could do it to keep going. You can make an attack with a skirmish weapon to get that extra space to get in range for melee. Though for this to work, you can't be immobilized or slowed. Kind of makes sense, you know, you're not being hampered so you can still run and keep moving. Now for the core power of the Nelson, the perpetual momentum drive. That's always a good name. So before going into its actual stats as usual, what it is, what have they attached into the Nelson? What have the mad lads at IPS-N done? So they knew this thing needed to charge, they knew it needed to go fast. And they already put a bunch of other enhancements to try and make this go faster, plenty of systems already crammed into the thing. So they looked to their ships again, and they took a fighter tier near light drive, a version of it that's going a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of its total speed, and then placed it within the Nelson. And as a part of this core power, you can have it briefly activate to just knock you in a certain direction, enhancing your movement you're already doing by briefly ticking you towards light speed, just for a split second. It does also describe that the installation of this core power does require crash padding and gyroscopic seating on the interior of the Nelson, just so you can handle the G-force and shears, the sudden changes. Now what this does is with its active engage drive grants you a protocol to, well, engage the drive, and for the rest of the scene, your skirmish trait has you move 4 spaces instead of 1. You are moving. Nothing is stopping you. But it's just another situation of IPS-N just taking a ridiculous ship component and attaching it to a chassis. The fighter tier near light drive. constantly spun up at 0.000001L. But now onto the first license level of the Nelson, kicking off with a weapon, the war pike, the iconic weapon of the Nelson. A main weapon, and I mean, it's a pike, it's a war pike. It's a big, long metal shaft with a point at the end of it. Initially based off some early versions of mining pylons, it was refined into this more, well, it's a war pike. Again, there's not actually much technical going on about it. But it does still have some nice stats, so a solid 1d6 kinetic damage for what's essentially a metal pole, and threat 3, this does actually have pretty decent range for melee. Then you throw on the fact it has knockback 1 and thrown 5, so you can still chuck this at someone, if you don't get in melee for some reason as the Nelson. Next up are bulwark mods at 1 system point. Now the bulwark mods are just a numerous set of enhancements, additional armor, extended limbs, reinforced, all to handle difficult terrain. And this allows you to ignore difficult terrain. Pretty simple, but pretty valuable. Just an easy 1-level dip into the Nelson to ignore difficult terrain for the rest of the game, or for whatever license you're currently running. Simple but effective, and especially on the Nelson, because you are here to move. Nothing as simple as difficult terrain is going to stop you from sprinting directly at the enemy. Now for LL2, kicking it off, we have our first weapon mod. Thermal charge for 2 system points. Now weapon mod can only be applied to 1 weapon at a time, not your entire weapons or the entire mount, just 1 weapon, and it's usually restricted to a specific type of weapon in a specific mount. When it comes to the thermal charges, it's anything melee. This is kind of what it sounds like. It's an explosive charge added to the front of a melee weapon. Whether a fake false explosive head, or just charges added onto the side, or a specific false part that you can just throw, blow up, and then grab another. The way it actually works is when you actually successfully hit an enemy with this weapon, with the mod installed, you can as a free action expend one of its 3 charges to add an additional 1d6 explosive damage. And if you mix that with the trait from earlier and the fact Warpike is already doing a d6, you're doing 3d6 in 1 attack. But it's honestly just useful. Just having an extra d6 you can throw onto something after hitting someone in melee? Who doesn't want to hit someone with a shaped anti-tank charge on the end of a mech weapon? The next thing in LL2 is armor lock plating for 1 system point. And for armor lock plating in this image, it is armor lock from Halo. Not quite literally with the shielding and stuff, but similar effect. So first, you can brace while grappling, and any grapple on you actually ends, as you lock down additional plates rolling over all the weak components as you grab into the ground and can't be moved. Also, while bracing, you gain these additional effects. All attacks against you receive +1 difficulty. You can't fail agility or hull saves or contested checks. You cannot fail them. You also gain immunity to knockback, grapple, being knocked prone, and immunity to any kind of force movement outside of an external force of size 5 minimum. The Barbarossa can't move you when you're armor locked. Even with a Fomorian frame, it's still a size too small. This is what I mean by you're not moving. You technically can be moved, but not by the average chassis you're going to be fighting. Also activating this system gives 2 heat to self, so can't spam it too much. Kicking off LL3 is the second weapon for the Nelson license, the Power Knuckles, an auxiliary melee. Not here to steal the show of the Warpike. Maybe steal the show of the Warpike, but again, it's an auxiliary. But it has a threat of 1 and does 1d3 + 1 explosive damage. And you might be wondering where the explosive damage is coming from because it was described as knuckles. We actually looked to the Power Knuckles on the Nelson, so you see down here, yeah, okay, pretty standard, like, oh, this is a part of it. As you hit them with a force, it's like that shotgun power fist from New Vegas. You are blasting them away, just hitting them directly in the face with an up-close explosive. Shotgun from the back of your wrist or in the fist itself, depending on the chassis. Not to mention, you are still just hitting them with a fist on a mech. But on a crit, the enemy must make a hull save or end up being knocked prone. As again, the sheer force from just being decked by an explosive punch knocks them down. Everything here's been defensive or attack or modifying a weapon existing already. And all the speed was in the license, or in the chassis itself. This is the Ramjet. 3 system points. The lunatics have done it. They've just strapped jet engines to it. But for what it actually does is it gives you a new protocol. Outside of the equipment that's strapped to it, it gives you a new protocol to use it. Once you activate the protocol until the start of your next turn, you gain additional effects when boosting, and bonuses to boosting. So, when you are boosting, you have +2 to your movement. Melee attacks, including ram, grapple, and so on, so any of your weapons to begin with and then those effects, gain knockback 2. All of them. You are hitting someone with a force. However, when moving during this time, you must move your full speed in a straight line. You can stop and change direction if you would hit an obstruction or an enemy, and also can change direction in between big stages of movement, so standard move, boost, etc. Just not in the middle of that individual movement. And then again, another heat 2 to yourself, as this system is it's taking a lot of heat to power up and just send you flying. And this is already ridiculous. The amount of speed we have already gained from, alright, like, we're not even doing anything special. Just one of everything that can possibly trigger. This is your speed after everything we've just covered. Then you throw in the fact that you can stat the Nelson further, you can get more talents, you can get even more things from licenses to boost you further. I want it in the comments that if you have any combinations for the Nelson, the things that just give all of it, all of the Nelson to the Speed Freaks, just to make it go as fast as possible. Whether it's practical or not within an actual game, I just want to see the numbers. I just want to share the numbers. But it's the Speed Freaks chassis. It is a monster of just running at you. You aren't escaping it. It's a horror movie monster. It's always going to catch up, like running in your nightmares. Listen, to a Nelson pilot, that Goblin on the road is bonus points. It's another situation where IPS-N was going for reliability first, for the ability of using melee to be armored and durable. Whenever firepower or fancy tech wasn't reliable, you had a monstrous chassis that could hit no melee. And then when it needed to get in close, they made it get close. They made it go as fast as possible to get close. Not even just with its base systems, advanced legs, movements, things to help with difficult terrain and different environments. Adding jets to it, adding a near-light drive to it, even if highly scaled down. But that's because of what the Nelson stands for. This wasn't just a practical problem for IPS-N. It's a practical problem of violence. It's a practical problem of getting into combat, but it's who it's being used with. It's who's using it. It's what it means to diaspora. Because this isn't just an IPS-N chassis doing hard labor, whether that be slaughtering pirates, holding some kind of port of a station or moon, helping to repair a burning or wrecked cruiser, running along the entire length of it. When it comes to the Nelson, this is an IPS-N license. It's funded, it's built, it's supported by them, it's designed by them. This is, however, an albatross license. Because while it's used in hard space, while it's used by cosmopolitans, while it's seen by diasporans, and it's sturdy, hard, and rugged, it's because it's holding the wings. And just like their fighters, just like their fleets, just like their Moktba and mission statement, the Nelson is hurtling towards the enemy. Thank you for watching the video on the Nelson, the Albatross license, secretly hidden away within IPS-N, and the Speed Freak license due to the movement, the jets, and the partial spun down near-light drive on board. But no, with the right combos, the right talents, the right action economy, you can have this thing move ridiculously fast. Almost nothing will be out of range. It doesn't matter that you're melee focus. You will get there. And that's the scary and fun part about it, is it's just hurtling towards you. And I don't remember the exact build, but I remember that someone had said it got up to 50 speed in one action. Or one turn, not one action. Anywho, thank you again for watching the video, a thank you to my patrons, and have a nice day.
How's that sneaking suit working out?
I'm nice and dry, but it's a little hard to move.